All right, guys, we got some classic Donald Trump stuff to talk about here. He's just hitting us with amazing story after amazing story. Mark Esper, the former defense secretary's new book, is just full of gems with insane things that Trump would say behind closed doors. So this is in Rolling Stone. Trump kept asking if China was shooting us with a hurricane gun. A hurricane gun? The then leader of the free world also inquired whether the U.S. could bomb China in retaliation for the alleged hurricane attack. What? All right, let's go through this. Near the beginning of Donald Trump's time in office, the then president had a pressing question for his national security aides and administration officials. Does China have the secret technology, a weapon even, to create large man-made hurricanes and then launch them at the United States? And if so, would this constitute an act of war by a foreign power, and could the U.S. retaliate militarily? Then President Trump repeatedly asked about this, according to two former senior administration officials, and a third person briefed on the matter. Wow, so we got multiple people saying the same thing happened. You know what that means? That means this shit happened. Quote, "It was almost too stupid for words," said a former Trump official intimately familiar with the then sitting president's inquiry. "I did not get the sense he was joking at all." Wow. The sources who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations tell Rolling Stone that Trump began interrogating national security officials and other staffers about the alleged weapon during the first year of his presidency, and his questions would pop up sporadically until at least 2018. He kept asking about it. Two of the sources recalled that as Trump got deeper into the second year in his term, he started to drop the topic and occasionally joked about it. In certain circles within the upper ranks of Trumpland, the then leader of the free world's query became such a mockable occurrence that it became known among some as the hurricane gun thing. Quote, "I was present once when he asked if China made hurricanes to send to us," said the other former senior official. Trump wanted to know if the technology existed. One guy in the room responded, "Not to the best of my knowledge, sir. I kept it together until I got back to my office. I do not know where the then president would have heard about that. He was asking about it around the time, maybe a little before. He asked people about nuking hurricanes." That's a story that we covered previously. He sincerely thought, hey, what if we nuke a hurricane before it hits land? Isn't that going to, stop the hurricane in its tracks? So maybe we should nuke them. I mean, on the one hand, you should be surprised because this is incredibly stupid. But on the other hand, it's this is the same dude who was talking about, injecting disinfectant or bleach during COVID, and he was casually talking to his doctors can we find a way to do something like that? Maybe get some UV light inside the body, since UV light wipes this thing out very quickly. I mean, astonishing. This patently boneheaded line of inquiry from Trump, which has not been previously reported, was merely one instance in an administration overflowing with Trump's rampantly absurd conspiracy theory-powered ideas and policy proposals, many of which were ignored or shut down, thus avoiding additional atrocities. Last week, it was revealed that Trump's former Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, wrote in his new memoir that his ex-boss wanted to attack Mexico with missiles during peacetime between the two nations, then try to pin the blame on another country. We covered that one as well. He was like, I don't understand. Why don't we just bomb the drug labs? Bomb the drug labs and then say, I don't know what you're talking about. We didn't do that. Usually, if somebody's this stupid, they have enough self-awareness to, not put their stupidity front and center. So to kind of hide it and be quiet about it. And, ask questions and generally wait for answers. Appear more reasonable than you are. But he doesn't have that ability. Look, he's a pampered little prick, right? He's an elitist. He was born into a super wealthy family. His dad, passed to him hundreds of millions of dollars. And he said, I got a small loan of $1 million. First of all, that's not small. Second of all, it was way more than that he ended up getting from his dad. So he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. This is a guy who was never told no his whole childhood. And this is what happens. So he doesn't even realize when he says these things, you sound like a total moron, bro. He doesn't even realize it. He thinks these lines of inquiry are, genius. Despite leaving office in disgrace, Trump has continued on as the undisputed leader of the Republican Party and by far its most popular and influential national figure. He is currently the clear favorite to win the 2024 GOP presidential nomination should he ultimately decide to launch another campaign. Though a financial decision has not yet been made, Trump has strongly signaled to a variety of associates and counselors that he intends to run again, having made it his mission to turn his anti-democratic lies about the 2020 election being stolen from him into party orthodoxy. A Trump spokesperson did not comment on the story. Quote, "That does not surprise me at all," says Stephanie Grissom, a former top Trump aide who has since had a very public break with the Trumps. Though Grisham said she was not privy to the hurricane gun chatter, she simply noted stuff like that was not unusual for him. He would blurt out crazy things all the time and tell aides to look into it or do something about it. His staff would say they'd look into it, knowing that more often than not he'd forget about it quickly, much like a toddler. Wow. There's one other part that I wanted to give you from this. Trump's hurricane gun inquiries add to a list of odd beliefs the former president holds, not just about climate science in general, which he has called a hoax created by and for the Chinese, but hurricanes in particular. Now, before I get back to that, let me tell you one of the beliefs that he has is here, let me just mark my place so I remember, is that the body is like a battery. So you have a finite amount of energy, and if you use it up too quickly, you die younger. So by this logic, working out is actually bad for you. Exercising is actually bad for you because you're just blowing through your battery life quicker. This is what he really believes. He's talked about this quite a few times. And so he had friends who were athletes and ran in marathons. And when they would tell him, I'm going to go run in a marathon, he would be like, are you crazy? Like, why would you do that? Because in his mind, he thought, like, you're gonna die younger. You're exercising all the time, you're blowing through all your battery power, and you're done. It's a wrap. These are things he actually believes. Amazing. During the 2019 hurricane season, Trump insisted on telling the public that Hurricane Dorian was headed towards Alabama, which no models had predicted. Trump later appeared with a map that appeared to have been edited to include a projection of the storm hitting Alabama. You guys remember this incident, Sharpiegate? The incident, dubbed Sharpiegate for Trump's erroneous mark of a map, led to an Inspector General's report which concluded that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration had falsely backed up Trump's claim about the hurricane's path as a result of White House pressure. Of course. Of course. So, I mean, what else is there to say about this? He's just not smart. Like, he's just dumb. Like, okay, so what is his talent? How did he end up winning the presidency? He knows how to surf the mood of a crowd. And he's good at A/B testing in speeches. So, like, when he was doing his rallies in 2015 and 2016, he could tell what landed and what didn't, and then he would hone his act for the next speech or the next rally where he would hit the points that people clapped at and loved. And this is where you got all the, all of his famous go-to lines of, like, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. And then, Mexico said they're not going to do it. The wall just got 10 feet higher. Like, these are all things he A/B tested. And, like, these are the things that landed. And so he sharpened his message so that by the time the election came around, not only was this a guy who was leaning into that xenophobia and bigotry, which is popular among the Republican base, he was also the guy who was sprinkling in economic populism. Now, granted, all that was fake because he governed like a standard establishment Republican when it comes to the economy. But it worked. So he's good at playing to a crowd. That's his skill. That's his ability. But in reality, the dude has a devastatingly low IQ. And, again, with a story like this, on the one hand, you're always surprised. But then on the other hand, it's like, this is very, very, very Donald Trumpish. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.